this completely wacky video, a couple of months ago, I started playing around with these Wi-Fi smart bulbs. So this particular brand is ACEMAX. And about a year ago, I got my first one. And it failed. And it failed in a way where when it started up first thing in the day, it would be off color and kind of like flickering a little bit. And as it warmed up, it would pretty much steady itself out where it would work normally. And then as time went on, what was happening is that it was getting to a point where it didn't know what to do with itself anymore. So it was going nuts. And then eventually, when the light would automatically go off at night, literally within an hour and a half, it would start flashing like it was in setup mode. And that's exactly what it was happening. It was in setup mode. It would flash until, it either drove you nuts or, in the middle of the night, you'd have to go out and physically turn the light off. So you didn't have to deal with the flashing. So I thought it was just a fluke, so I just went on Amazon and I got another one. That one didn't even last a month, and it completely died. So just for the shits of it, I took it apart. So I got the best of both bulbs. So I got the best globe because the first one that I took off, I completely destroyed it. And then I saved both all of the control panels and the circuit boards and the display board. So that part is the display board. And this is one of them wacky things where the company put so many different kind of LEDs in here and they don't even utilize them. So really the only thing they're utilizing is the warm light and the cold light. They're not using any of them orange ones. There's some super yellow ones in there, and I think there's even some UV ones in there. So kind of weird setup. Don't know why. So I saved all the bits, and of course the when you take these things apart, you end up ripping the wires out. So that's not really a big deal. With that, so this one that I have here. This is the one that was flashing after an hour and a half. And really the only thing that I see that is physically wrong, no, actually this one's the flashing one. Because I had to save the board so I could decipher between the two of them. It's been a couple of months now since I got these laying around all over the place. So this is the one that failed completely, so it does not work. And this is the one that works, but it flashes and it goes haywire. So I do notice two things. One of these caps is bulged. So it's this one right here. That's bulged. And on top of that, this thing runs so hot where even the PCB is discolored. So you can see that's discolored over a year's time. And this one is, pretty much a month old. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bulging cap off and then replace it with the one on here as a parts board, the donor board. And then after that, I will pretty much extend the wires so I can put it back into the screw part portion. So what I did off camera, is I drilled a little hole in it so I could fish the wire in there and have something to solder to, because you need a connection to your screw portion, and of course the little push pin. You just fold the wire over and put the push pin contact back on. Not a big deal. And then after that, I'll figure out what I want to do to reconnect it if it works. So most likely I'll have to get some more of that thermal silicone adhesive or something like that. Whatever. And of course the globe will snap back on. So to make things easier for myself, because sometimes desoldering this stuff is quite annoying, I'm going to use this desoldering gun. That's all I'm going to do is just suck the solder out, and they should pop right out. So I just need to make note that the negative side of the capacitor is facing the little inductor as a visual reference, and then we'll find the pads here. Comes right out nice and easy. And then we'll just do the same thing with this one. And it was the second one in. We'll do the same thing with that one. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for it the solder to melt, and then you can kind of wiggle the component lead, and you feel it moving, and then you can suck out the solder. And sometimes this works, and sometimes it don't. See, like this one's being difficult. Sometimes you have to actually put fresh solder on to get it to, so you can suck it back out. Which is probably the case here because that wonderful lead-free garbage that they use. So while that's warming up, I got to change the battery, so I'll be right back. Fresh battery and warmed up a soldering gun, soldering iron. So we will put some fresh solder on this thing. And we can try again. Yeah, it worked perfect. So nice to have tools. So now we can just put that Crapacitors, back into the board. So if you're curious, these are 400 volt, 10 microfarad. These are 130C caps. So that takes care of that. So now we'll just solder it back into the board. So luckily for me, I can take that part off and then lay this all flat because it will sit flat, sort of, but good enough to get the component back in. Okay, that was the easy part. So now I'll never be able to get these wires back into there and solder them or solder them and get them back together. So I'm going to take these off and I'm going to extend the wires. So I got to take all this glop off because they don't want you to play with these things, so they glue them in. But that's what we do here in this laboratory of wackiness. Is we fix things, or at least we try to fix it. You know, there's going to be situations where there's a lot of stuff out there. It's just really not worth fixing because one, the parts are not available. Two, the parts are available, but you don't know what it is because they conveniently lasered the top of the component off, so you don't know what the hell it is. Or three, it's too expensive, you know. By the time you take it apart and you diagnose what's wrong with it and then put it back together if you can find the part, and that's just the way it is. For this situation, you know, I had two of these, so what the hell? One of them's going to work, one of them's not. One of them's going to have good parts, and one of them's not. And based on the heat that this thing generates, it's probably not a long-term repair anyway, because it'll probably just, you know, burn out again. So based on the you know, the heat generated on this thing compared to the other one, which only lasted a month, who knows? So I need to get some wire to put that back together. So since this is alternating current going into the board prior to the full bridge rectifier, it doesn't matter what color wire or whatever. So you get whatever you want to get. So we'll put this in here. Give it a little bendy. So I'll give myself plenty of wire, and I'll just cut it. Get another piece, cut that same length. Luckily, I made the hole big enough where I can just stick the whole wire in there. Now let's see if we can get a spot of solder to stick on that. So I'll change tips here, because I'm going to need a bigger tip with some mass. Nice. Focus. Thank you. Almost looks factory. And for this little jobber, for the other one, strip the wire, stick it in the hole. Watch it fall out of the hole. We'll put a little hook on here. A little spot for it to hold itself, and then we'll put the pin in. Simple. So now we'll put the wires back on. So we'll cut them the same length. Give it a little strip. And then we can put our board back in. Holes are nice and clean. Okay. Now, we put our little board back on. Wood board. And then we can stick it back in there. So this one's kind of biased to one direction because it's there's actually a pair of slots on the bottom of the holder there to hold a PCB. So we can just sort of eyeball that. Now for the big test, does it work? Does it work, or does it go up in smoke? So I get my little test rig here. Flicker, flicker. Let's flicker a little bit. Probably got another bad cap in it. So now it's in setup mode, so it's flashing. So it would do the same thing when it was off for a little while. So I do believe I deleted the task at hand of saving this bulb. So this was under the Smart Life app. Yeah, I did delete it. Devices to be added: Smart Light, cold plus white. And we can't have the 2.5 gigahertz. We got to have the 2.4. It'd be nice if these apps would do that automatically. Put you in 2.4 if you're on 5. So now I'm being re-added to the list again. And of course you can already tell because it stopped flashing. So it looks like it's downloading some kind of update or something like that. You bastard. You took so freaking long. This thing updates so slowly. Duh. That's the only problem with some of these Wi-Fi bulbs or anything that's Wi-Fi smart related. Sometimes it takes 2, 3 times to get them to say, "Okay, I'll play." Flipping pile of garbage. So it's just like any Wi-Fi app, you can screw the color change, go from cold to warm, and of course dim it. If you can get your finger to cooperate. So this is one of them bulbs where you can, of course, put it on a schedule and have it running through scenes. See, like it's got a good night mode, it's got a reading mode, it's got a working mode, it's got a leisure mode. It changes the color temperature and the intensity. Unlike my Crees, it's got, of course, it's got more because it's an RGB uh, bulb. And then you get silly little messages. And then, of course, you can turn it off. So, it was still flickering a little bit. It still had that like subtle, typical flickering of an LED bulb that's not running right, or bad caps or something like that. And it's already warm. So luckily I can take this back apart very easily now. And get it back out. And check them other capacitors. Oh, that's hot. That's a hot LED. Of course, it has no heat sinking, so it's going to be hot. So, what I can do is discharge these capacitors. And check them. So I can stick that there. So let's see here. What do we got? Of course, I can't read them. They're all jumbled next to each other. Ten volts, 47. Ten volts at 47. Should be about 2.2. .6, so that's a good cap. How about this big honker in here? So this is a 50 at 220. 50 at 220. 4.4. So 220. 220 at 50, so it looks close. So it should be about 0.1. That's 4 ohms. So that one's a shitty one. A big one. How about on the donor? 1.8. So it's a lot better. So we'll have to change that big one. Because that big one is shit. And then the other one was this other one on the very end. This one is a 10 at 400. So minus is this side. About 6 ohms. Yeah, it's probably bad too. So really the only good cap was this one whatever it was. 70 at 10. So the rest of them, the other two are bad too. So we'll change them. For junk to less junk. So we'll plug my desoldering back on. And turn the temperature up a little bit. So while it's doing that, I will put fresh solder on all these caps so they can be changed. Easier, more easier. Do the same thing on this one. So that's the only thing I don't have. I got capacitors here, but they're not the high temp jobs. I'll have to get a kit of high temperatures. So let's see. This big one, the ground, is facing the other two. Man, that was a tough one. And now for the final one. Then we can say we recapped this whole thing. We recapped all this China pride that failed after a year. Which is kind of pathetic. in itself, but what's even more pathetic is the other one that failed in a month. Sometimes what happens is that the through holes are too small, so you can't really get a good airflow through that hole to suck the solder out. Then on the other hand, you want to be careful because sometimes the just the process of doing this can destroy the pads. That's some good qualities. Construction there, they just threw that capacitor in and they didn't even care. Legs are all bent. There, now we recapped the whole thing. So I'll just stick it back in there, and it should remember. Or not. Who the hell knows with these things? Okay. See if it's still got the flicker in it when you first power it up. It's actually steady. It works. Nice. Beautiful. So that was a fun little project. We took out all the crap capacitors out of the working one that wasn't completely dead. So we took the pretty much all but one of the capacitors out. Took them out of the newer board and put it in the burned up board. You might as well say, because this one did work, but as you've seen the heat cycles on the board, it was, scorched a little bit. So basically, probably what happened is all them capacitors probably all got super hot and they just went, even on this board, that one big capacitor, was supposed to have a low ohms, and it was starting to get up there. So just a temporary fix. I'll find a home for that somewhere in case I need it. So the board that lasted a month turned out to be a donor board. So now we have a working Wi-Fi smart bulb that's, I just have to get some of that thermal silicone adhesive, and this bulb will be good enough to do something, Probably something that, definitely that ACEMAX, you definitely don't want to have that as a long-term, more than probably an hour or two or 3 or 4. Something not like what I do is 14 hours, so it lasted a year. For the original one, the replacement lasted a month, so definitely not a 14-hour bulb, kind of like sometimes they say, blah, 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 you'll save so much if you have the thing on for you know, like an hour or so or something like that. It doesn't even say how much energy you would save, so it really doesn't matter. So, fun little video if you actually watched this long, if you watched it all. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.